Welcome to the webcast. I'm Dean Seddon, and today we're going to be talking about generating leads with your LinkedIn profile. So whether you're a salesperson, business owner, marketer, this is something you can all do. You don't need to be a natural at sales to do this. And I'm going to walk you through some things you can do right now following the training that will help you generate leads. So wherever you're joining us from, let us know in the chat if you're watching us on Facebook, if you're watching us on Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter. Don't even think we're on Instagram with this, but slip of the tongue. LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Let us know where you're joining from. Feel free to ask questions. If we don't get all your questions answered today, don't worry, you can email us. And we do have a free resource that we're going to share. And the name escapes me, but it's Kickstart Your LinkedIn. I'm just trying to remember. What's the name of the title? Kickstart Your LinkedIn Success, is it? It's a guide that you can download or we can email you, which will help you with your LinkedIn. I think it's called Kickstart Your LinkedIn. It's a PDF. Luke in our team wrote it, and we'll share it with you so that you can kickstart your LinkedIn. So what we'll do is I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second, but you can have it for free. And the email address is on screen, london@maverick.io, and we will send that to you. So if you want a copy of that, I can see some people are joining now. Sorry, the screen's here, here, and here. There's people joining now. So we're going to kickstart this in a moment. But we will show you the resource that you can get. So it's called Kickstart Your Guide to LinkedIn. It's free. So don't go to our shop and try and buy it. We'll email it to you today if you drop us an email, hello@maverick.io. So the Kickstart Guide to using LinkedIn. Got it right in the end. So let's look into this and say, how are we going to generate our leads with our LinkedIn profile? What are we going to do to make that happen? So if you've never joined a session like this before, you don't need to worry. A countdown timer is not going to appear here. And I'm not going to say, oh, we've only got so much of this left and it's all that kind of stuff. This is not QVC. It's a training session to give you some ideas, to give you some insights. And the only thing we ask is, if you get value from this, do the likes, the thumbs up, the shares, the subscribes, the follows, come find us on social media. If you get some value from this, write a review. Stuff like that will help us no end. Some people will go, actually, I really should talk to them. Maybe they can help me with my business. Maybe they can help our sales team. We'll happily help you and support you and show you some of the things, our paid services. But this is all training today. So first things first, every business needs leads. Every business needs some people expressing interest. But what is a lead? What is a lead? So I tend to think of a lead. It says here, lead is an individual or organization with an interest or need in what you are selling. So a lead has to have interest. They have to have a need. In other words, an impetus to want to fix something, or an impetus to buy a service, a motivation. So they have to have a motivation, and they have to be a fit. And of course, they have to have the ability to pay. So I would always qualify as a lead as somebody who's shown you interest, somebody who has a need that your service or offering can help with, and has the ability to buy what you're selling. So outside of that, it's not a lead. A lead is not somebody you discover on LinkedIn. A lead is not somebody who you just randomly bump into. It's I categorize a lead as somebody who needs what you sell, has the ability to pay for it, and fits your target audience. That's what a lead is for me. So let's look at some simple ways that you can generate leads with LinkedIn. Real simple ways. If you've got notepad and pens, please make a note here. If you haven't, I'm also going to give some other resources away in the session. So jot down the email, hello, london@maverick.io. london@maverick.io. And if you need a replay or if you need any of the resources I mentioned, just drop us an email, as well as if you want the Kickstart guide as well. So just a bit of simple understanding, right? 62% of the users on LinkedIn will vet you by your profile. So real simple things. Just think about this in a logical way. Before somebody replies to your message, before somebody replies to your connection request, they will check out your profile. In fact, if you're not using LinkedIn right now, some of your decision makers will still vet you via LinkedIn. You send them an email, they'll go to LinkedIn to check out this person to see whether they should reply or ignore your message. So LinkedIn is a massive space where people vet. But if you send a connection request to 100 people today, I'm not advocating you do that. You probably get yourself in a whole host of unhealthy LinkedIn habits. But if you did, 62 of those people that you've sent connection requests will come and look at your profile to go, who is this person? Should I connect with them? Should I not? 62%. So your profile makes a huge difference in terms of the acceptance or rejection of your connection requests. When you send a message, if you think about it like this, people make a judgment call about you off what they see in the message, the substance of the message, and then they also make a judgment call on the profile picture they see, the name of the person and the description underneath the headline. And then they view the profile and go, should I respond to this person? And what they're looking for is, are you credible? Are you a fit? Are you real? All of these things are going through your prospects' minds. And if you fail that credibility test, if you fail that relevance test, you will not get a reply. So 62%, nearly 2/3 of all users will vet before choosing to respond. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is that actually one of the low-key ways to generate leads is content. You don't have to be a sales pro. You don't have to be an expert. You just literally need to be able to leverage polls. Now, polls, some people get really grumpy about polls. And if you get grumpy about polls, I've got a little bit of advice for you. And it is this: get over it. Just get over it. Polls are here. They're happening. It's a free country. Who cares? But one of the things you can do is intelligently use polls to gauge where your audience is at and get them to engage with you in a real low-key way. But you can use the poll to understand where your clients are at. So let's say, for an example, you've got 4 key benefits to your service. What are the big challenges that companies would be having to need those benefits that you offer? Let's say you provide a technology solution or a financial services solution. What are the challenges within those clients where it means that they would want or need the benefits your services deliver? And write some polls about those challenges. Now, what happens, and we've got a full guide on this because it's too much to go into now, step by step. You can create what we call a loaded poll. So it's not, hey, do you want to buy from me? Yes or no. It's like, I'll give you an example. I could do a poll and say, how many inbound leads do you get from your social media content? And I could put 0, not many, a decent amount, more than we can handle. And people vote. Now, given that I teach, train, coach, consult with companies to help them get inbound leads that actually have a buying intent, because lots of companies can generate leads, but they can't generate them with buying intent. So, okay, I'm going to do a poll about how to get inbound leads. People vote and say zilch, not enough, a decent amount, loads. Great. So I've got a poll and I get 50, 60, 100. Sometimes you can get, tons of people voting. But if I get 50 or 60 and my network is built out with my target audience and 50 or 60 people vote and tell me how they've done, I know for an example that about 72%, I did a post about this today, 72% of people who are posting on social media get 0 leads, 0 or zilch, because I've done these polls before. So when I get that poll and I go, my 50, 60 people have voted, I look through them and go, who told me they got zilch? Who told me they got not enough? And I can go, thanks so much, message them, drop them a line. Thanks so much for voting in my poll. Really appreciate it. Can I ask you a question about your answer? And they say, yeah, sure. And I can say, well, given what you do, it should be relatively straightforward to generate inbound leads for what you do. Do you want to have 10, 15 minutes in the calendar and I'll show you maybe how you can fix that zilch? And I'll do a discovery call, give some value, but tell them how I could help. With the people who've said not many, I can do something very similar. The decent amount and the more than I can handle, those two, what I can do is talk to them and say, I'd love to know what the quality of those leads are. How many of them have buying intent? Are they the right people? Do they have the budget and ability to pay? And then say, oh, well, what if we could improve the quality of the leads that are coming through by changing the way you're doing it? And I can arrange a call with them. Very simple, loaded polls. You can't ask people direct questions, but you can ask people questions that they feel like it's sharing information and they're curious to share. I call it, you can't ask people to vote for something that would expose them personally. So, do you hate your boss is not a great poll to do. They might get some people who will vote on it, but to be honest with you, a lot of people would step back from that because they don't want the implications of what voting on it would be, or common sense people do. So you can't say, hey, if I could generate 50 leads for you in the next 4 hours, would you be interested? Yes or no? They'd go down like a lead balloon. In fact, one of my competitors did something like that and asked, if I did a free training on how you can get more leads from LinkedIn, would you be interested? And 92% said no. You don't really want to do that kind of poll because it's a bit embarrassing when people are like rejecting you to your face. So you want to do it in a very sensible way. We've got a guide on this. So I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it. We've got a whole guide on how to do it step by step, including the follow-up, how to do the follow-up. So if you want a copy of that, again, just drop an email. Member of the London team will come back to you and say, here's the PDF, here's the Kickstart guide, here's the replay, here's the slides, so you can kind of go away and get this into action. So generating leads with LinkedIn polls, brilliant way to do it. Very simple, very straightforward. Anybody can do it. Takes a little bit of time just to understand what's the poll going to be about so that the answers tell me something about the customers, tell me something about my audience. If you ask people, do you use cybersecurity software, yes or no, doesn't tell you about their need. Yeah. But if you turn it around and ask maybe, do you think companies fully appreciate, know where all of their vulnerabilities in their business are? Yeah, and you could ask those kind of questions where people will say, oh, yeah, I don't think they do, or they do, or they don't. That's the key. Quick question here. How long should I wait to contact someone after the poll? So this is really important. When you set up a poll, you can set them up for up to 2 weeks. I'd encourage you to set the poll length for 2 weeks. So you'll see that when you set up the poll, how long do you want the poll to run for? 2 weeks. That's important so you get a good group of people engaging with it. But what I would try to do is once you've launched your poll, if somebody comments on the poll, engage back with them. And if somebody votes on the poll, within 3 days, go back to them and thank them within 3 days. Not the same minute, not 5 minutes later, because that looks really intense, but within 3 days. Yeah, 3 days. So people don't forget you, don't lose sight of it, don't remember the poll, all that kind of stuff. So LinkedIn polls, powerful tool. If you want the guide for that, drop us an email, london@maverick.io, and we will send it to you so that you can have it. So the next one, and I'm going to kind of put this picture in picture because you'll want to see this one. So the pain point headline is just a real simple thing you can do to garner the interest of your prospects. And again, you really have to understand the needs of your potential leads. No need, no lead. So what would be the challenges they've got? Notice the common theme here. What are the challenges that they might be having in their business because they are not your client? What are the challenges that they have because they're not your client? They're not using your services. They're not engaging with you. They don't have a service contract with you. They're not using your software, your technology. What are the challenges they have because they're not using you? And you don't word them in that, because you're not using us, this is the problem. You actually explain to people in your LinkedIn headline how you help people with these challenges. So our technology helps companies struggling with X to achieve Y. Yeah. And pain and outcome, challenge and outcome are the motivators for people to buy. You can have the most sexiest technology on earth. You can have the state of the art 24/7, AI, machine learning, crypto, blockchain stuff. But if people don't see their need, they will never be your lead. Real simple, common sense stuff, right? But sometimes what happens is we make things so complicated we forget. A person with money, and I know I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but a person with money needs to go, this is the money I've got, this is the budget I've got, that's what I get, that's definitely worth it because it will help me do this. So we talk about it in the way of the big wins. In other words, what's the broad results that would happen in a business because they've become a client of yours? So improved efficiency, cost savings, they're making more money, those kind of broad topics. And then we talk about real world impact. Okay, so they're making more money. What's the real world impact on their business? So if you're talking to a CTO and the CTO, the big win is they're saving a ton of money. The real world impact for the CTO is probably he can deploy his budget to other stuff because he's saved money buying your software or your solution. The improved threat management is another. So the better protection, a real world impact is better threat detection. Yeah. So you start to think about it in categories, and then the inverse of that is actually the need, the big pains, no budgets, vulnerabilities. Okay, excuse me. You start to list out the broad big pains, and then you go, okay, what's the symptoms of that? What's the impact of that on their business right now? So actually, they don't know where their vulnerabilities are. There's a list of vulnerabilities taking ages to get through. You start to list those out. We call it an audience value proposition. And then what you do, if you're not very comfortable selling, but you want to garner interest, so maybe you're marketing, or maybe you're product manager, or maybe you're just trying to build your thought leadership, you can change your headline on LinkedIn. So you can see here, India has got hers as let's quit cold calling and get more meetings instead. Why? Because a lot of India's target audiences are companies where they're cold calling because that's all they know. That's the thing that they're in a routine of doing it. Even though it's not very effective, they're doing it, churning numbers. But why are they doing it? Because they want more meetings. So India's headline, let's stop cold calling and get more meetings instead. she doesn't say get instead. She will then go and engage with all her prospects who are posting on LinkedIn. Comment, meaningfully comment, because that headline follows you everywhere you go. And she gets people messaging her after she's engaged with them on their posts. She's not sales pitching. And guess what they do? They come back to her and say, tell me more. Tell me more. I'm curious. Because she's appealing to people who are fed up of cold calling and want to get more meetings with prospects. Actually, one of the things that most people say is, if we get on a meeting with a prospect, we do really, really well. The challenge is getting to that meeting. Our conversion off a meeting is pretty good, but getting the meetings like a slog. So this is a real simple method to do it. Very, very easy to do. Even if you're not a marketer, go and meaningfully comment on your target audience who are posting, but change your headline so that they see the value in knowing more. It's all based on curiosity. Human beings are curious. And when you give them too much, they pull away. And when you give them too little, it's unfamiliar. But there's a sweet spot of giving people a teaser of, oh, you could get this and you could lose that, or you could save this and gain that. And people go, I want to know more. The best way to sell is actually to engage and keep the prospect curious so that they want to know more. And this whole profile method is based on keeping a prospect curious. Okay, so again, if you want a copy of that one, if you want a copy of the replay for this so you can think about how to do it, but you can also go find India. She's just had a little boy, so she's on maternity leave at the moment. So if she's not so active, that's why. But you'll see her activity on the platform. So a couple of questions there. Do you need your position in the headline at all? You don't need it in, but if you're trying to use your headline for this strategy, what I do is put your job role at the end of the statement so it's very clear the pain and the curiosity piece is the most obvious thing in the title. So you don't have to. If you're a salesperson, you may choose not to put it in at all, because sometimes people are, I might say I'm an account manager or something like that, because sales has a connotation. It has a expectation you're going to be hit around the head by a salesperson or pursued. So you might want to change that or drop it from the headline. It's totally up to you. Other question here is, does SEO matter in your headline? Well, I used to say yes, but most of the time now, the content and your outreach activity, your engagement, is actually what gets you the traffic to your profile. So yes, there is an element of putting keywords in your profile will bring people to you. The problem is the keyword research. You have to find the right keywords and constantly update them. But to be honest with you, I find the majority of my content views, the majority of people finding my profile are actually coming from my outbound engagement and my content. Content's the biggest driver of profile views and inbound connections and inbound interest. Always content. But these strategies, the poll one that works very well. You could get 20, 30 leads a week by doing one poll a week. This one is a bit more subtle, and it's also a bit more manual work, but maybe you've got an account list, a list of companies, and this might be your first attempt. It's also going in and engaging with your prospects, even if they don't come and engage back initially on your first comment, is a great way to build relationships so that you can actually outreach to them later. So the final one is the easy DMs. So the easy DMs is really, really simple. It's your prospects and will go through various updates and changes in their roles. Real simple. And there's two versions of this. So the first version is your prospects will update their job title. They'll have a birthday. They'll have an anniversary. Don't just send the standard LinkedIn thing. Don't send like War and Peace either. Just send congratulations on the new role, Sally. Hope you're all good. How things been over the pandemic, or how are things at XYZ Co. And Sally will come back and say, oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's all good. And you can interact and build up some interactions. That's the first one. So you've got birthdays, anniversaries, birthdays, anniversaries, and role changes. So obvious ones, you need to be connected. But the not so obvious one is when you have these. So one of the features you can do on LinkedIn is you can update your job role and it will notify your network. And when you notify your network, they start to inbound message you to congratulate you. Don't just say thanks. Hey Sally, thanks so much for the job role. Congratulations, appreciate it. I was just updating it, updating my LinkedIn. I've left it for a little while. How are things with you at XYZ company? Real simple way to have a conversation. Keep it casual, keep it informal. Informal, but never familiar, because you don't know these people like friends. They're like acquaintances and people you kind of know. So informal, but never familiar. So not an email, because that's formal, but not like, how are you? Like text chat. Treat it like it's a relative, a family member you know quite well. Your message is warm, but it's not quite, your best friend, and it's not quite somebody you see every day. Somebody might see once or twice a year, that kind of warmness. So a real simple strategy here, the easy DMs, number one, be on all of the updates of your prospects. Number two, and you can only do it a couple of times a year, tops, update your job title, notify your network, and then they inbound you. And off the back of that, you can start a conversation with the prospect. Key that you do your research. You don't just want to try and sell to anybody. You want to make sure you've done your research so you know that this prospect is the right fit for you. They've got budget for it. You can do a lot of research, Companies House, you can do LinkedIn research, you can do web research, so that you understand that the prospect has a need or may have a need, and they're the right kind of company and the right fit. So these are the three different ways you can do leads or generate leads every single week on LinkedIn. Real simple stuff to do, nothing rocket science. If you're just starting out in sales, it's a good way to start. Helps you get into the DM and the outreach. That's not the kind of spammy, annoying stuff. It's more relational. That's the key to start opening up these conversations. That's the key to starting to generate leads in a real simple way, not rocket science. It doesn't have to be complicated. Now, obviously, if you want to scale this up and you want to get volume, there's lots of other things that you can do. So with my profile, I'm pulling in around 200 leads a week off the various activities I'm doing with my profile. And I'm not sending sales pitch messages. I'm outreaching, I'm engaging, but it's warm, it's friendly. And I'm not saying, hey, buy my stuff, but I'm getting interest back and following the interest and following up, because I understand the needs of my leads. I understand why they need me. I understand the challenges, the big pains, the symptoms. I understand the real world impact and the big wins. And I use that to help me communicate in messages, in content, in polls, so that I can communicate in a way that the customer goes, this is interesting, I'm curious, I need to know a little bit more. Maybe this could be something for us. And so they're curious, they're exploring. And often what we do is we forget that that first stage of engaging a prospect or a lead, they're just curious. And if you try and sell to somebody who's curious, it's like taking a sledgehammer to do something that, a little hammer, a little house hammer could do. Yeah. It's like trying to put a picture hook up with a sledgehammer, and people will recoil from it. So the idea is that you keep that curiosity until the point where you've established where they're at. The best thing you can do is keep a prospect curious until the call. Keep the prospect curious until the first call, because anything you try and explain digitally will be understood in their context. You can't bring your context to the conversation in a digital environment. So if you're selling SEO services to a prospect and a prospect inquires and you send a schedule of services, they might have been with another SEO company and go, oh, they do it exactly the same as them people. They won't see the difference. They just see the words. And so you want to keep people curious, arrange that call, engage their curiosity, but actually then show them how you can help fill their need. That's why people will buy. And the danger on LinkedIn, the danger is you try and sell on LinkedIn. People say, oh, no, I want to qualify my prospects beforehand in the messages before I go on a call. That's not really possible. You can qualify them in the sense of, this is who I'm going for. This is who I'm targeting. They have the budget, and they've expressed an interest in the need. They're showing me they have a need. We call it an intent threshold. They're showing me they have a need. Now, if they're the right company, the right role, they're expressing interest or have a need, and they have the ability to pay, you need to turn that to a call so you can qualify it. You can't qualify a lead on LinkedIn. And I'll tell you why. It's real simple. You cannot guarantee that whatever you send will be read in the right way. Just think about it from WhatsApp. How many times have you sent a WhatsApp to somebody, or somebody sent a WhatsApp to you, and you read it as negative and they didn't mean it that way? Yeah. How many times have you received one of those messages where somebody sends it and it feels like they're being rude or stroppy, and then when you speak to them about it, they were just saying it and there was no ill intent or no stroppiness or angst behind the message? Yeah, we see this all the time. And so you sending a text message through LinkedIn, an in-mail, or you sending an email, there is an element of that prospect is going to bring their own perceptions to your words. And they will judge you by the words, not because of what you've said, but how they interpreted it. So that's why the call is so important, because that's where you can look into their eyes and they can look into yours, and we can understand people better. And this is the big thing people miss on LinkedIn, is it's not the same as selling in person. It's not the same as selling on the phone, because you at least get some emotional feedback. You can judge a reaction. If I put a price to you and say, actually, to work with me for a 1 day's consultancy is £10,000, and you go, yeah, I can, that was a bit dramatic, but I can read that and go, bit of price shock there, right? And likewise, if I go, it's £10,000, and you go, okay, so it's like there was no price shock. Yeah. So you can judge a person much better in person than you can on LinkedIn. And that's why curiosity is your friend on LinkedIn versus pitching. And you have no idea how people are reading and interpreting it. And even the world's best copywriter can't control that. So I went on a tangent there, but that's why I'm saying, get the lead, have the conversation, get to call, or get to the first point of contact as quickly as you can, because that's where you can really engage the prospect. So keep them curious until they're on the call. Okay, I think we got a couple of other questions and then we'll wrap up. I think we're going pretty quick. There's not many questions. Are endorsements a good way to start a conversation? Ooh, right. I have to balance this one. So endorsements are a good way to start a conversation. They work very, very well. The only problem is people feel uncomfortable endorsing people they've never met. And I understand that. But this is just a click of a button, right? Let's just keep this in context. We're clicking a button, right? So if you endorse somebody on LinkedIn, three things are going to happen, right? Three things. You endorse a prospect on LinkedIn. They're going to go, who's this strange person endorsing me? That's one of the things that could happen. Who's the strange person endorsing me? The other thing that could happen is they just don't see it. They don't even see it. So they see it and think it's weird. They don't see it at all, or they see it and say thank you and message you back. So out of the three options, that's what pretty much comes from it. Yeah, one of the three. So you think about that and you go, okay, will I not look like an idiot for endorsing people that I don't know? Yes, you will, for a percentage of people. But the reality check is a percentage of people probably think you're an idiot anyway, so I wouldn't worry about it. There's a lot of people who don't like you. There's a lot of people who don't like me. You know, it doesn't matter. So, but the reality is, and let me just kind of unpick this. You send an endorsement to a prospect. I would never send an endorsement to somebody I've just connected with. So I would put an endorsement maybe 2-3 weeks down the line. Yeah, 2-3 weeks of being connected down the line, that I'd probably send an endorsement. Fine. So the percentage of people who ignore it, no problem, or don't see it, no problem there. The percentage of people who reply back and say thank you, no problem there. The percentage of people who go, that's a bit weird, this person I've never actually met in person endorsing me for a skill, it's a bit strange, right? They're the ones you're worried about. So you're worried about a fraction of the audience, yeah? Because I tell you now, if you endorse 100 people, about 30-40% of them won't see it. So we're talking about a minority of people who might think it's a bit weird. So let's just throw that out. One of the great things and the downsides of social media is that people forget things really quickly. So when I teach and work with companies, I say to them, if you're going to engage a prospect, pretty much all your efforts will be forgotten in 3 days, 3-4 days. It's all gone. It's like it never happened. So if you endorse somebody today and they go, that's a bit weird, guess what? They won't even remember it a week later. And 2 weeks later, they won't even remember your name. And 3 weeks later, they couldn't even tell you if you'd been endorsed. They wouldn't even remember the last time they were endorsed by somebody. So sometimes we get in our heads a way of thinking that doesn't make sense. The vast majority of people, it has no impact whether you endorse. A tiny minority would have maybe a weird feeling towards you for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then they wouldn't even remember your name again. And then if they looked back and went, oh, this person endorsed me, maybe think about it this way. Let's say that prospect doesn't engage you now for another 3 or 4 months, and then you engage back with them and get them talking again, and they look back through the history, they won't remember the weirdness. What they remember is, I must have had contact with this person before, and now you're familiar. Yeah. Sometimes we worry about the short term and not think about the long term, that actually a pattern of interaction with a prospect, even if it's not very successful on the first round, actually 3 to 4 months down the line, by not pitching and not being so aggressive, it actually helps you convert that deal better, or that prospect better. And that's a particularly important, not so much for small businesses or small value sales, but if you've got a high value proposition, you know, you're looking to sell £500,000 worth of stuff into a company, those kind of efforts really make a difference in engaging the prospect and interacting with the prospect. It gives you conversation topics when you get into person, in person or face to face. So I wouldn't worry so much about endorsements. That was a long way to answer the question, but yes, they do work, but I'd use them as like a third or fourth interaction after being connected for at least a week to 2 weeks. How many interactions should you do before you message somebody? This is really interesting. It really depends. How many times should you interact with somebody before you message or outreach? Some salespeople will say, interact? Why would I bother to interact? I just cut to the chase and send the message. It's like, oh my. Yeah, that's not skill. That's the lottery. You're playing the lottery. You're trying to see, if I send enough messages, will I get a response? But how many interactions should you do before you outreach? Smaller businesses, if you're targeting smaller businesses, it doesn't have to be as many, but I would say 4 or 5 interactions with at least a day in between is a good, healthy way to build a relationship over time. That's probably it. Now, if I was looking to sell something that was £500,000, £1 million, and the prospect is very senior within a large corporate, it might take you 3 to 4 weeks to engage with them, subject to their activity levels, of course. So you might plan this for 3 to 4 weeks, because it's worth the time and the investment. Because if we pull off a £500,000 deal, it's worth putting that extra effort in to make that move more smoothly. So I might go, okay, I've got an account plan for this person over 4 weeks, and I'm going to engage with something at least every other day for the next 4 weeks. So you go, every other day for 4 weeks. Yeah. That could be 10, 15 interactions, maybe. Yeah. 10 or 15 interactions. Sounds a lot, doesn't it? But actually, if you keep the space between them, you can build up a really healthy conversation quite quickly in 3 to 4 weeks doing that process. So not all go that fast, not all go that slow. They're all a bit different. But what I'm doing is taking a judgment call on the value of the sale, the seniority, the size of the company, to go, okay, what's the best way of doing it? And what's the payoff? What's the payoff if I convert that £500,000 deal? What is that payoff? And it's a big one. So if it's a big payoff, then it's worth the effort. So that's how I would approach that one. Can you track your lead magnets? So people viewing your content, I'm assuming, or people looking at your content. Yes, you can. LinkedIn has a feature where it'll allow you to see who is spending time on specific pieces of content. So not every post, but you can create posts where you can track the individuals who are spending time on the post. It's called Smart Links. We have some clever strategies you can do with that in terms of lead generation. And it's a great way to engage an audience. So yeah, you can do it. You can't do it on every post, and you can't just send it out in messages and see what happens. There has to be a strategy behind it. Otherwise, you'll get nobody spending time on it. And I've seen people do this. They go, we got Smart Links, we put a load of PDFs in it, and we just fire it out and see who looks. And then they go, how come we sent 200 messages and nobody's looked? Because what you've crafted is not compelling enough to get people to jump over the intent threshold of going, I'm going to click the link. I'm going to click the link. So it's not crafted well enough to get people to click the link. I don't know whether we got any more questions, but just a reminder, if you want the resources from today's session, so the LinkedIn polls guide, if you want the Kickstart Your LinkedIn guide, drop us an email, london@maverick.io. We'll send you these by email because they're PDFs. We'll send you them over email. And some of you will go, this has been interesting. I'm curious. Drop us a line and we'll schedule a call. Look at what you're trying to achieve, the size of the deals you want to get, who are the leads you want to find, and we'll help you build a strategy to get those leads and to engage those prospects. We're not doing lead generation for you. We will give you a strategy of how to do it. So if it's a £500,000 deal you're looking for from LinkedIn, we'll show you how to get those leads and how to do it and guide you into implementing it, if that's what you want. If you don't want that and you just want the free resources, drop in an email, we'll send them to you and you're all good. But either way, could you like, subscribe, follow, comment, all that fun stuff that we need to stay in favor with the social media gods. And we'll see you on the next session. I think our managing director, Simon Miles, is planning a session on the new state of sales. So if you're in sales or you're a sales leader, we're going to have a session about the state of sales and selling in 2022 because it has changed. No, you cannot rely on automation anymore. Sales is a skill, and in the 21st century selling, you are going to need sales skills because the numbers game will not cut it anymore. Anyway, check out Simon's session. It's coming up really soon. Look at the company page, look through the events, you'll find it. And we'll see you on a next webcast, same time, same place, next week, Thursday at 2.